So let's begin by settling the body, adopting a stable, comfortable, upright position serviceable for meditation. So we think about keeping our feet flat, our back straight, torso open, hands in the lap, right over left, with the palms upturned and the thumbs gently touching. Our eyes are gently closed or slightly open, making sure we let in enough light to remain alert. And try to maintain an awareness of not slouching, not leaning. Let's let go of any unnecessary tension and rigidity in the body, relaxing into a stable, comfortable, upright position, allowing the body to fall into place. And begin to move the mind inward, allowing sights and sounds to be as they are without investigation, straining our awareness just to the body and mind, concentrating that awareness in the present by attending closely to the physical sensation that accompanies the in-breath and the out-breath in the space around the opening of the nostrils. Noticing quickly when anything other than that one physical sensation is arising in the mind, and without judgment or frustration, lifting our awareness up from those distractions, placing it gently but firmly again and again on the breath. And then when the mind feels more calm, generate a broad altruistic motivation for our time. So I begin to think about all of the ways in which we are the recipient of kindness from others, all of the ways in which we benefit. simply being the recipient of the benefit is enough to make it a kindness. So I think that we are able to enjoy a life of relative safety, prosperity, due to the actions, the efforts of countless sentient beings providing the basic infrastructure in our societies that we rely on. We depend upon clean water, nutritious food, that the lights turn on, that there are doctors and nurses, other skilled professionals that we can turn to solve all of the various challenges that we come across. We depend upon the roads, clean air, and even one's own knowledge, one's own skills, one's own ability, one's ability to read and write and think critically have all come from the patience, the energy, the effort of our parents, our teachers, people that we took as teachers over the course of our lives, whether through books or videos. And I think even our own good qualities, the degree to which we are generous or patient or kind, considerate, completely depends upon having sentient beings with whom to practice these habits. So there's nothing that we possess or know or could claim as a trait that doesn't come from others. And I think that these kind sentient beings, just like oneself, deeply wish to be happy, deeply wish to be free of suffering, and yet in their lives they meet with difficulties again and again. I think I must work for the benefit, having received incalculable benefit from others. I must work to secure their welfare. Now that I have all of the necessary inner and outer conditions to apply myself in my spiritual path, tap into my potential, now is the perfect time to dedicate myself to repaying their kindness, and that will depend upon transforming my mind, becoming deeply familiar with virtue, turning away from non-virtue. So we take that process of transforming the mind for the purpose of benefiting others as our motivation. And then with that motivation, one of the meditative techniques that Geshe has recently touched upon in his teaching on mind training is the meditation on giving and taking, which is a process by which we train ourselves to turn toward the suffering of others. We work with the aversion the discomfort that naturally can arise in being exposed to the suffering of others. And try to rid the mind of that aversion, that discomfort, or perhaps indifference, and instead train the mind to move toward suffering, because only then can it be alleviated. And take a moment to visualize yourself in meditation, thinking of oneself in a larger space. And then also imagine in front of oneself is a person or sentient being, like a pet, that you can easily feel strong compassion for. You can use yourself or any sentient being that's close to you. And imagine that this sentient being is experiencing some difficulty that you know that they experience from time to time. They are in front of you actively under the influence of that difficulty. And begin to imagine that that difficulty takes on the nature of smoke, pollution surrounding them. And concentrate the mind on your genuine wish for them to be free of that suffering. And begin to imagine that due to the force of your compassionate intention, that smoke, that pollution, the energy of their suffering begins to be drawn off and begins to funnel toward oneself, drawing closer and closer to one's own body. Imagine that it penetrates the heart center of your body, wherein you visualize a small, dark seed, a mustard seed. And this suffering is absorbed into the mustard seed, the dark seed at the heart. As you absorb more and more, the dark seed becomes more and more dense. And then when you imagine that even the slightest suffering has been completely removed, that the dark seed collapses under its own weight and is replaced in the heart by a much larger orb of golden white light. This orb of light represents your own true Buddha potential that was obscured by the dark seed. Having voluntarily taken on the suffering of others, you've overcome those veils, those obscurations, and are now in touch with that Buddha potential. Imagine now that they are free of suffering, that you wish for them to be deeply, perfectly, truly happy, possessing all forms of temporary as well as ultimate sources of genuine contentment, bliss, joy. To think from the Buddhist perspective, this is the definition of love. So you send out this loving intention in the form of light rays from that orb of light that go out and surround and absorb into this sentient being in front, carrying with it all of those forms of happiness, temporary and ultimate forms. And imagine in a detailed way that they possess all of those sources of happiness, genuine contentment. And then imagine that that sentient being in front disappears and is replaced by a group of 2 or 3 people that you do not know. And imagine that they are experiencing some difficulty, some suffering that you have some concern about. Could be homelessness, hunger, disease of some sort, being oppressed, being subject to war or instability. Imagine that in front of you they are themselves in the midst of that suffering. And again, think of it as taking the aspect of a pollution and try to, in your own mind, generate that same intensity of compassion that you previously had, wishing them to be free of that suffering just as fervently as before. And again, think due to the force of that compassion, and pollution is drawn off and funnels toward oneself. And any discomfort in the mind, and just allow it to be there while courageously continuing in the practice. This pollution funnels faster and faster toward oneself, penetrating and absorbing into the heart, into the dark seed, which becomes more and more dense. And then imagine that once all of that suffering has been removed, the dark seed once again collapses inward under its own weight and is again replaced by a much larger orb of golden white light. And think that you also deeply wish for them not only to be simply free of suffering, but to possess all of the temporary and ultimate sources of satisfaction, contentment, bliss. And so you send out rays of light from that orb at your heart, which carry with it, in a detailed way, all of those sources. And you imagine that they receive and enjoy them. And then when you're ready, we'll come back together. And we'll dedicate. So recollect your altruistic motivation and think that by having engaged in this contemplation, you've actualized that motivation, which has generated positive energy in your mind. I think that you freely offer the fruit of your practice, that positive energy, for the benefit of all sentient beings without exception. Thinking strongly, when this positive energy ripens, may it serve as a cause and condition to eliminate war and conflict, poverty, famine, disease, disasters, all painful inner and outer conditions. May it fully ripen the minds of all sentient beings. May they quickly meet perfect teachers and arise in the state of full enlightenment. May I too achieve the state of enlightenment, so that I might work for the benefit of all sentient beings perfectly. May any obstacles facing the Guru's long life be completely dispelled. And may I and all sentient beings in this moment come under the joyful care and guidance of enlightened beings. May we be guided and protected until we swiftly achieve that state of enlightenment. Thank you.